John Lennon did not approve of the guitar solo that was performed by the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones were praised as the nastier version of what the Beatles intended to be, and this was despite the fact that both groups may have been influenced by the British invasion. The histories of bands like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles have been continuously rewritten by those working in the music industry. In spite of the fact that both bands may have solidified a position in music history as a result of the British invasion, it was only natural for the press to pit the two bands against one another. Keith Richards noted that John Lennon was very direct about his judgment of their music, despite the fact that the musicians themselves had a tendency to get along well with one another. On the other hand, if it weren't for the Beatles, the Rolling Stones most likely would not be as successful as they are now. In the course of their musical education in London clubs, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards became comfortable performing the music of others long before they witnessed John Lennon and Paul McCartney finish the song, "I Wanna Be Your Man," in front of them. They quickly ascended to the top of the songwriting industry, producing some of the most offensive rock and roll songs of the 1960s, such as "Satisfaction." Jagger and Richards were instantly moved by the performance, and as a result, they were inspired to write it. Despite the fact that the girls may have been drawn to the potent melodies and the stage presence of Jagger and Richards, Lennon was dissatisfied by one of the guitar breaks Richards laid down on one of their early songs. Richards put the break down on one of their early tracks. Aside from the blues-influenced songs that made them famous, the early attempts at ballads that the Rolling Stones made were likely to be unsuccessful when measured against the criteria established by the Fab Four. Richards claims that Lennon was furious when he heard the song "It's All Over Now," despite the fact that Lennon would approve of the Stones' overall style of music. Richards says that Lennon was incensed when he heard the song. When discussing the song in his book Life, Keith Richards mentioned how brutal John Lennon was about his solo break. Richards wrote that John could be very straightforward in his approach to things. "As far as I can remember, he simply insulted me by making a harsh remark to me when I was playing my solo in the middle of It's All Over Now. He thought that it was a worthless piece of junk. It's possible that on that particular day, he got out of bed on the incorrect side of the bed." At the very least one more time, Lennon would continue to dredge the band through the muck. Lennon voiced his annoyance with the band's apparent ability to imitate the group, while analyzing the strong artistic parallels between the two bands. He stated that all the band cared about was listening to the Beatles and then replicating them with their own unique twist. After the Beatles broke up, it didn't take long for the Rolling Stones to claim the title of rock's most enduring band. This was in large part due to the string of albums they released, such as Beggar's Banquet, which demonstrated a rediscovery of their bluesy roots. Despite the fact that Lennon had a foul tongue, Richards was aware that Lennon still had a deep love for what the band had accomplished. Richards has previously mentioned in his biography that he felt a subtle kinship with John Lennon over the course of the years, due to Lennon's honesty. Richards made this statement in reference to Lennon. "It's possible that this would be embarrassing for anyone else. On the other hand, John exuded an air of candidness that made you feel comfortable approaching him, had a certain degree of force and ferocity. He stood out from the crowd, just like I do. We felt an odd attraction to one another that grew stronger with time. At the very beginning, there was unquestionably a battle between two